and get started now. And if anyone jumps in, then they can feel free to use the chat box, or Sarah, if you would like to also chat with me. I won't be able to see it while my screen is up presenting, but after the presentation, I will also pop on chat just to see if there's any questions. So thank you so much for coming. 1 second, and let me share screen. Okay, so hopefully you are able to see my wildly possible presentation. All right. So again, thank you for coming to the talk today on the University of Kentucky's MSW program. Unfortunately, our recruiter, Ms. Stephanie Early, was unable to attend today, so I have come in her stead. My name is Sarah Green. I am the graduate advisor for the College of Social Work. So I work not only with our MSW students, but I also work with DSW, PhD, and all of our certificate-seeking students as well. So if you have any questions about any of those programs, feel free to reach out to me at any time. So about UK, first of all, we're wildly passionate. We're exceptionally prepared. We have 4 degree options, which I have indicated earlier. We have MSW, DSW, PhD. We also have a BASW program that has just started their online version this semester. So we have a lot of online asynchronous and synchronous components to our programs as well. For the MSW program, we'll talk a little bit more about that later as well, but we do have 2 options: a hybrid, which comprises of an in-person component as well as a synchronous online component. And we have a fully online asynchronous option as well. The DSW program, fully asynchronous online, PhD is traditional. We have 80 plus years leading in social work education, practice, and research. We're the #1 social work program in Kentucky. We're also the #1 in terms of licensure passing rates in Kentucky. We have 6 professional and academic certifications and 7 research centers and labs. We have a number of flexible program options. So first of all, we have advanced standing and regular standing. So if you are coming into the program with your bachelor's in social work, you're eligible for our regular standing program, which is 30 hours. Whether or not you complete it or in 1, 2, or more years depends on how many credit hours a semester that you want to take. Most of our students in advanced standing like to take the full accelerated 15 credit hours per semester to be able to knock out that degree in 1 year. We also have a regular standing program. So if you are from a different discipline, you are absolutely eligible to apply to our program. We have students from all over in terms of their academic interests. We have students who came from arts and sciences, humanities. We have business students. There's a lot of variation and interest in our program. So if you have a bachelor's degree in a regionally accredited institution in any program, you're eligible to apply. You do have to have, for both advanced and regular standing, a 3.0 GPA for your undergraduate work. If you're advanced standing, your social work GPA has to be a 3.5 and above. If you're on the cusp of either one of those, we do have a petition for exceptional consideration. So if you're at like a 2.9 GPA because maybe you had a semester where you really struggled, don't let that deter you from applying. Please feel free to submit that exceptional consideration petition, and we will absolutely still consider your application. As I mentioned too, we have the fully online and hybrid. Again, the big differentiation is the fully online program is entirely asynchronous. So you are working a lot more at your own pace. You won't have the kind of like this Zoom synchronicity that you would have in the hybrid program, and you wouldn't be having any in-person interaction. The hybrid program has in-person classes that are required, but they do also utilize synchronous Zoom meetings, for example, as well as asynchronous online components. But most of the program is going to be synchronous. We do have, as I mentioned too, the part-time and full-time. Now those look a little different from what you might be used to in undergrad. Undergrad, I know, I want to say most universities it's the same. It's generally 12 hours and above. is considered full-time, and anything below 12 hours is considered part-time. In graduate school, it's anything 9 hours and above is considered full-time. Anything below 9 hours is part-time. We have students who take just one class a semester. That's rare, but we do have it. We have students who, if they're interested in part-time, take between usually 6, but sometimes they'll up it to full-time in a couple semesters to have 9 hours. But I will say the majority of our students tend to prefer the accelerated option, which is 15 credit hours per semester. If you do the accelerated option, you're able to complete the degree if you're regular standing in 2 years, and if you're advanced standing, 1. We have a number of certificate options as well as cognates that students can pursue while they're working on their master's in social work. So basically how that works, your MSW program has electives that are built into it. So if you're in the advanced standing program, you have 9 hours of electives, regular standing 12 hours. And you can build in a certificate or a cognate directly into the degree depending on your interest. So for example, if you're interested in child welfare, that is 9 additional credit hours that you will then just build directly into your MSW 9-hour requirement, and you'll be able to complete both by the time you graduate. So to go over the certificates that we do offer, and I won't get too nitty-gritty about it. If you're interested, feel free to reach out to me, and I'm happy to direct you to the appropriate certificate director. But we have child welfare, so a number of our students who work at the cabinet pursue this option. I will say if you're interested in working at the cabinet, but if you're working at the cabinet, you have electives that you're required to take by the state, and you can transfer those into our program, so that'll count. I don't know if that would apply for any of you, but it would absolutely be an option. The clinical social work is probably our most popular certificate option. It is 9 credit hours, again, built directly into your degree. There's no practicum requirement. Child welfare, there is a practicum requirement. You have to work at a placement that is working with children, and again, usually it's the cabinet. School social work is 9, is it 9 or 12? 3, 6, 9, 9 hours. And you do have a practicum requirement for that as well, working at a school setting. So if you're interested in working with kids K through 12, in the state of Kentucky, you have to have a certification in order to do so. If you plan on living out of state, every state has different certification and licensure requirements. So you want to make sure you check with your state board about that. But if you're planning on practicing in Kentucky and you want to work in a school setting, you do have to have your school social work certification. Now, we've just separated out the certificate and the certification, so they are 2 different entities because the certification requires 1 additional EDS class, but you can talk with me about that individually if you're interested. Military behavioral health for students who are interested in working with military populations. Many of our students want to work at the VA. They'll pursue this degree or this certificate while they're pursuing their MSW degree. But basically it too is 9 hours, and you do not have to have a specific placement, but most of our students want to have a placement at the VA if they pursue this option. We have the Rural Population Wellbeing Certificate, which is it's still under approval, so the university is working to get that approved for fall of 2021. Integrated Behavioral Health, IBH, is a highly clinical cognate. It is not a certificate, but a cognate, and it's also a HRSA grant-funded program. So if you're interested in that, you're eligible for a $10,000 stipend. And you do have to have a very specific placement that is particular to rural Appalachia. We also have a substance use disorder certificate that is also a HRSA grant-funded program. If you're interested in that, it too comes with a $10,000 stipend. And then we have, outside of our college, but with our partners at UK, we have a developmental disability certificate as well as gerontology certificate, which a number of our students like to pursue as well. So if you're interested in any of these, please feel free to reach out to me, and I'm happy to talk to you further about them. So just a little bit more about our program. So we, as I mentioned earlier, have the #1 clinical licensing pass rates in Kentucky. We do offer career counseling at the college as well as through the university. Our academic advising team is overseen by a licensed clinical social worker. And we have postgraduate networking opportunities. So we try to very much stay in touch with our community. We have really good networking through our agencies that we work with for our practicum placements. Most of our students do go on to work at an agency that they have worked with as a student, but that's not necessarily required by any means. But we do have a very good history of placing our students after graduation and helping them find employment. We just recently started a 2+1 DSW initiative. So our DSW, Doctor of Social Work program, just started this past summer, was our first cohort. And we are offering an opportunity for our MSW students who are interested in the initiative to do this 1+2 option. So it says advanced standing students, but actually it also applies to regular standing students as well. We're working with our graduate school to have a dual degree option for our regular standing students. So you can count 9 hours of your MSW work, your DSW work toward your MSW program. So you're still able to pursue that 1+2 initiative, even if you're regular standing. But basically, you first have to be admitted into the MSW program. And then depending on the semester in which you're admitted, whether you're full-time, part-time, and whether you're advanced standing or regular standing will then determine when you need to apply for the DSW program. It is highly competitive, and I will say that only the top 1 to 2% of our MSW students would be eligible for it. So you want to make sure that your first couple semesters in the program, especially your first semester if you're full-time accelerated, that you are, 4.0, you're really on it, and you're very engaged in your classes and with your instructors, so that you will have good recommendations for the DSW program. We do also have a number of centers and labs available. Now these are available to all of our online as well as hybrid students, and any program that we offer, students are eligible for these centers and labs. I won't get too nitty-gritty about this, but if you're interested in learning more, please reach out and I'm happy to talk to you further. But basically, you have the opportunity to conceptualize and conduct research, programming, and consultation with these programs. So we have the TRC, the Training Resource Center, the Interdisciplinary Research Center on Children and Families. We have a self-care lab. Now our dean is very passionate about this one. A big portion of his research is in self-care. So this one's also been very popular this year, just with everything happening. We have the Suicide Prevention and Exposure Lab, the Military Behavioral Health Lab, which is also run by our director of the Military Behavioral Health Certificate, Dr. Chris Flaherty. We have the Kentucky Kinship Resource Center and the Institute for Facilitation Innovation. So again, if you're interested in any of these, please feel free to shoot me an email and I will be happy to help answer any questions you have, as well as to be sure to get you in touch with the appropriate people. So our curriculum, basically we have, as I mentioned earlier, regular standing 30 hours, regular standing 60 hours, advanced standing 30 hours. And within both programs, you're gonna find these elements within those programs. So you have practice elements, research, policy, theory, and field practicum. So our field practicum is probably the portion that students have the most questions about, and I'm happy to help direct you to our field office. We are very lucky to have a wonderful group of people who work for us in the field office that help our students to be placed. We also have a system that we utilize called IPT, where students can search for placements in order to apply for those. But if you're a regular standing student, you have 900 hours of field experience required, 640, which is a foundational practicum, and then 740 and 741, which are your advanced practicum classes. Generally, they're 2 separate placements. The foundational practicum would be 1, and then the advanced practicum would be both for 740 and 741, 1 practicum placement site. But you'll work with, if you're in our online program, Miss Renee Campbell, who's our online coordinator. If you are in our hybrid program, you would work with Miss Deshay Scanlon, and they would help you in regard to finding your practicums. And, just to help you to determine what placement is best for you. The research, well, I should say the policy and theory, we used to have a separate program, which was community and social development, but we've kind of integrated those classes that were more macro and policy based directly into our foundational curriculum. So you're going to get that built into your curriculum in the program. A little bit about the admissions process. So I know you'll see on our website that the application deadline for the spring semester was, I want to say the 15th. Yes, it was the 15th of this month. But I am working with our admissions officer, Mr. Kyle Phillips, to extend that deadline. So if you are interested in applying for spring, you could still potentially be eligible to do so. Please just reach out to me and we'll talk through that process. But for our applicants interested in applying for fall, you have plenty of time to apply. I will say, however, and we will talk about scholarships in the next slide, or the 2 slides from now. But if you're interested in a scholarship, you want to make sure to get your application in by the priority deadline, which is January 15th. And then you'll also need to submit your scholarship application by January 15th as well. So our application for admission, you will go to this website and it will basically just direct you through the entire process, word for word, verbatim, what you need to incorporate into your application. Again, if you are on the cusp of the GPA, the form for exceptional consideration, the link for that is also on the application page. And then it will direct you through the prompts of your personal statement. It will direct you into what you need to write for your writing sample. You will need to also have a resume that's been updated, 2 letters of recommendation. If you're graduating this year or you've graduated within the past 5 years, you need to make sure you have at least 1 academic reference that needs to be preferably an instructor. You can make an argument for a practicum supervisor or an academic advisor as well. But if you have any questions on any of that, Mr. Kyle Phillips would be who you'd want to reach out to, our admissions officer, and I'm happy to give you his information as well. Also keep in mind that when you apply to the College of Social Work, you're also applying to the graduate school. So there are 2 separate entities. Almost all graduate programs at UK are housed in the graduate school. And their primary concerns in your application are going to be that you meet the requirements that they have to make sure are being met in order to keep accreditation. So you have to have your transcript and degree conferred. You have to have the transcripts submitted to them that are official. You have to also come from a regionally accredited institution. So those are what their considerations are. The college's considerations are going to be the individual components of your application, your GPA, etc. Application tips. So when you're preparing your application, pay attention to your writing. The College of Social Work and most sciences tend to use, or social sciences tend to use APA formatting. If you do decide to cite anything in your personal statement or your writing sample, just make sure you cite everything appropriately and utilize APA formatting, or just try to utilize, if you're not familiar with APA, some type of formatting, MLA Chicago style, to show that you can do that. Submit an actual ethical dilemma, not poetry, not short stories or other prose, and specifically not other assignments. We have had students who have just submitted term papers, things of that nature. That doesn't constitute as the writing sample. It has to be an ethical dilemma. It has to be 500 words or less and meet the requirements posted on the website. You want to make sure to identify your recommenders early and submit their names early so that they have a chance to formulate the recommendation letter and to submit it on time so that we can review it in a timely manner. Basically, say you submit your application by the January 15th deadline, but your recommenders don't submit their portions until February 20th. That's fine. You'll still be considered for scholarship funding because you submitted your portion, but we won't be able to actually review your application and to admit you into the program until it's completed, which includes the recommender's recommendation letter as well. I mentioned scholarship opportunities. So as I said, you want to make sure that you also submit that application as well by the 15th to be considered for the next academic year, which would be fall of 2022. So January 15th is the deadline for scholarship applications. You want to make sure you've also submitted your MSW application by that time. Now, the scholarship application usually opens in December and then closes in January 15th. So you'll see there is that quick and tight turnaround time. You want to make sure that you get both of those done in order to be considered. It's one application and you're considered for all eligible scholarships. Other types of funding you may want to consider, there's employer-based scholarships. So I mentioned the cabinet. The cabinet does offer an employer-based scholarship for students who are interested in pursuing their MSW. I know that if you're an employee at UK, you get tuition remission for up to 6 credit hours. So just check with your employer to see if that's an option. We also have students who utilize their GI Bill if you're former military or currently enlisted. You can also take out student loans no matter what. I highly encourage students to fill out the FAFSA, even if you don't plan on taking out student loans, because a lot of those scholarships will determine eligibility based off your EFC, which is your expected family contribution, and that's determined through your FAFSA. So no matter what, I would fill out the FAFSA just so that can be on file. And we have 2 websites here that you can look for funding. Our scholarship page is listed here, and then the graduate school scholarship funding. They have some fellowships and things of that nature and grant funding that you can look into as well. So that is the end of my presentation. If you have any questions, here is the contact info. Once you reach out, we will be able, if you have specific questions, like I said, about particular certificates or cognates or application questions, I'm happy to get you directed to the appropriate people should you decide to reach out. So thank you so much, and I've really enjoyed chatting with you today.